Dale, first and foremost, we are thrilled that you're here to talk hockey today after going through your battle with stomach cancer. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good, after doing chemo in the fall and then having surgery right after the new year, and then chemo again this spring. My last chemo was about 3 weeks ago, so yeah. Overall, I feel like I'm getting stronger every day.
I know you were reluctant to ring the bell of hope after your last round of chemo, April 13th, because you were sensitive to all the coronavirus patients there. But in the end, you did do it. And were you happy to? Did it feel great?
Yeah, I think not only for me, but I mean even for other people, because there's lots of people sitting in there, getting their chemos injected into them, and whenever you hear the bell of hope, somebody's finished it and moving on in the right direction, it seems. So it gives them hope too. So that was important for me to do it for them as well, because I've been in there when I've heard it before, and I'm thinking, yeah, it'd be nice one day, but just to get it finished. But yeah, for sure with the coronavirus, you want to get in and out of there. We're pretty vulnerable, us patients that are in the chemotherapy. So, but the nurses really wanted me to do it, and they were great, and I was glad I could do it for everybody there. And it's been a long battle.
Well, let's do something you love, and that's talk hockey. TSN is airing all 3 games of the '87 Canada Cup. You played a critical role, particularly in Game 3 in Canada's comeback. What is your biggest memory of that series and that game?
Well, I really think the '87 Canada Cup really changed the game of hockey, especially in the NHL. I think you especially in that 3-game series, because you saw 2 teams that were loaded with talent, but they were so loaded that you couldn't extend your shifts, because if you got caught tired out there, you were going to get burnt. And I think it really awoke everybody that, hey, we're just going 30, 40 seconds hard here, full throttle. And I mean, it's amazing when the dust settled, every game was 6-5, 1 in overtime, 1 in double overtime, 1 in the last minute. I mean, I didn't write a better script than that, but the 2 pretty talented teams, and I think both teams are pretty exhausted by the end.
You were a 6-time 100-point guy with the Winnipeg Jets, and you had asked to play a grinder role for Canada, but a critical assist and goal in that final game. Describe those 2 plays which brought Canada back to even things up.
Well, the Brent Sutter's goal was a great shot by him. I mean, I made the pass from behind the net, but Brent, I was all over the place. I was playing a little bit of center, played the wing with Sutter, and then I think Rick Tocchet was there. And Rick Tocchet had a hell of a game, because he was hurting pretty good before, and a lot of guys played injured. It's pretty funny, because there was a lot of guys that probably wouldn't have played, but it was such a big game. And Rick was, he was hobbling around, and he was instrumental, especially in that first period. But I remember one time I went to hit one of the Russians, and I missed him, and I hit my shoulder on the dasher board, and I was like a stinger, and I couldn't feel my arm, and my stick was kind of falling out of my hand. So I went to the bench to change, to get somebody healthy out there, and the trainer saw me, and he come running over, and he's talking to me, and before you know it, Keenan's in my other ear, and he's like, "Are you going to milk that thing all night, or are you going to be ready next shift?" So it was kind of like, it was all hands on deck. But playing with Brent and Rick, they're such go-getters, and we really grinded it out for a few shifts, and we felt like something was coming. And then I was able to make a play from behind the net to Brent, and he scored a beauty top shelf. And then on my goal, it was just kind of a wraparound and just staying with it. And I can't remember who it was, but it might have been Sutter, sort of interfered with one of the Russians so that I could get around the net. And I just kept jamming away, and it went in. And of course, because we had such a poor start to that game, it was an uphill battle. And then we got the lead, and then they were able to tie it up and force us to try and win it in the last minute.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to Game 1 that way, where you fell behind and had to come back, except lost Game 1 and win that one. You were a surprising choice to some to take that final face-off in your own end. Mike Keenan just said you were having a good night. You just felt good about it, even though you had a lot of choices. What were you thinking when that puck was dropped?
Well, a couple things. Well, even when I went to training camp, I don't think they really had me penciled in. I remember the late Pat Burns coming up to me, and I love Pat. Pat was great. He was a real good communicator with us, and he's like, "Hey, Howie, just keep playing the way you are." He says, "You know, we really didn't have you penciled in, but the way your training camp is, there's no way we can keep you out of this lineup." And they did end up keeping me, but yeah, going out for that last faceoff, he's like, he just, just go get messed. And so you're going out there with Gretzky and Lemieux, and I said to Gretz, I said, "You want to take the faceoff?" He said, "There's not a chance." And then I go to Mario, and he's kind of got that French accent, and he's like, "Hey, Ducky, that's on my wrong side. I can't take that." So I said, "Well, Mario, I'm tying him up," so which means for him to come in and pick up the loose puck. But that's how that faceoff transpired. And of course, they went down and did their magic the way they did the whole series. And those, I'll tell you what, watching those two play, like as many points as they had and goals they scored, they probably missed, twice as much. They were that close all the time. But they were, people enjoyed watching them. But I mean, we had great seats on our bench watching those two.
And what were you thinking as they're carrying the puck up the ice after Mario chips it off the boards?
Well, there was only one guy that could really catch him. I think it was Bikov, and I kind of hooked him up a little bit. But,
oh, you kind of did.
Yeah, I mean, he really dove it though. But I mean, if you watch that game, I mean, geez, you just have to watch some of these playoff classics and the hooking and holding. Like, it's crazy hockey back then. People forget, right? Like, you could do that sort of thing. You were always allowed to kind of hook for one stride. If you started water skiing, well, then you took a chance of getting a penalty. But
were you worried that one was going to be called a penalty at such a crucial moment?
I really was, because it was Koho. Koho was reffing, I believe, right? Kaharski.
Yeah.
And he was on it all night, because there was a few dives out there. He was really on it. He did a good job, I thought. And that was a case where, I mean, I hooked him a little bit, and then he did a spinorama falling down, right? Like, I mean, he looked like he was training for the Olympic figure skating. So Koho was right on that all game. And, a lot of times, back then the refs would be like, if the guy hooked you or whatever and he didn't think it was enough, the ref, you could hear the ref saying, no, keep
right.
going. You know what I mean? So they were really communicating. But that one there, I really didn't think, I would have been surprised if he called it. But I think more than anything, the way he dove really made the refs say forget it. But I mean, it wasn't that hard a hook. I mean, it might look it the way he dove, but
right.
It was all I was trying to do was just break him half a stride so he couldn't quite catch Mario.
Yeah, a critical little play though to give Mario that extra bit of room.
Yeah, maybe if he's tighter, maybe he slides it to Murph, but maybe not. Like Mario says, we'll never know.
Do you keep anything, a souvenir, a keepsake from that tournament?
You know what? I have one good photo. My grandmother, who was alive at the time, she was in a wheelchair since she was 50. And she used to always get parked right behind one of the nets, right? And she befriended one of the photographers there, and he ended up sending her a picture of me holding the Canada Cup. So I actually, that's quite a popular picture with me. I don't know if I have it here. Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that.
Oh yeah.
So anyways, he had the lens where you could see the picture or whatever, I guess. And she said, "Oh, you got to send me that," right? So she was notorious for getting her way right into behind the opposition's net. She knew not to go to our end and never see me.
That's a great photo. And just the expression of your face. I mean, you won another Canada Cup in 1991, and there was some great international tournaments before 87. But do you think has there ever been another tournament, another series played at the level of those three games?
No. I mean, that was for a 3-game series. That was incredible. And I'll tell you, one other series that was pretty incredible was the Rendezvous, which was in 87 in Quebec City. And, that was a 2-game series, and that was really competitive. That was our all-star break. And let me tell you, there was no break that year. That kind of set up for what was going to happen in the Canada Cup. It was almost a tune-up, and so we got a little bit of a feel for them. But they had a lot of different guys in that lineup than they did when they came into the Canada Cup.
Well, listen, thanks so much for sharing the stories. It's fantastic to watch that series again. I hope all of Canada is enjoying it, and it's great to see you doing well, my friend.
All right, thanks, James. Appreciate it. Everybody, stay safe out there. We'll get through this.
Thank you, Dale.